Our culture, our tradition is of working with nature rather than against. Nature is not something to be conquered. It is something to be a part of. And unlike many cultures which fear nature, ours is a culture that has lived in harmony with it. Smriti means remembrance. One means forest. A forest of remembrance. A forest of memories. A forest of rebirth and resurgence. That is what Smriti Van is about. I'm Rajeev Kathpalia. I have been practicing as an architect independently since 1987. We moved to Ahmedabad in 89. And then 95, we became partners with Mr. Doshi. And since then, the practices kept on increasing, and now there are 7 partners in the practice. Kutch is a very unique part of our country. Not only in Gujarat, it used to be the backwaters. The other aspect of Kutch which is fascinating is the kind of climate and the kind of resilience that it has created in the people that live out here. But then it is also also the place of ancient culture and our history. The brief was very simple: plant a tree for each victim. The first thing was, of course, the challenge was to identify how many victims there were. Actually, we found out there were 12,932 victims eventually. Then the question was that if you had to plant a tree, you needed a certain size of land to be able to plant trees for them to thrive. And then this Bhuj or Dungar area, which was the Dungar used to be occupied by the army, which they cleared out now. And so that was available. Slowly that periphery grew from the needed 120 to 200 acres, then 400 acres, and eventually 470 acres was reserved for Smriti Van's development. Generally, clients don't come with they give you a vague idea of what they are thinking about, but we make a brief for them. We give them a vision of what it could be and how many things could tie up with that brief. So that's how this project started. I mean, the first part was when GSDMA approached us. They said, well, besides planting a tree, please tell us what else of memorial, how would it be? So we envisioned something and we talked about this idea. That time the CM appreciated the idea and he says, a self-sustaining system, I think, is a must. We must do this. And so it developed from that. Then people, it's not that the brief just is in one go. It also unfolds. And then people said, what about this? How about this? If you could add that. And people have contributed immensely. I mean, one of the beauties of working on a project like this is that it opens up many doors and many things are put into the bag. And then it's up to you as an architect to decide how do you use this to achieve something that is holistic. So people who want silence will find silence. People who want to meet others will have social connections, and this will be a meeting place. And for that, there are cafes and places for them to sit, to congregate, to have discussions or converse with each other. People who come to the museum would be also looking at various aspects, not just one aspect. So there is a Shraddhanjali room where you offer your, Shraddhanjali to the victims who've perished, their names come up, etc. There is, of course, the earthquake simulator to give you an experience of what it is. But there are other ones that tell you about science and facts of why earthquakes take place and how you should build in where earthquakes play, how you should protect yourself. There are also places which talk about how people who so heroically rescued and set up things. The museum came about because how do you represent a culture? Not only the earthquake that happened, it's called the Earthquake Museum, but in some ways it talks about the resilience of this culture and its diversity. And so it is anchored by various galleries of different kinds. And then while doing this museum, the question came about that besides the galleries, and people get tired, no, after a while, they need a break. So the spine in between does many things. It not only connects these galleries, but it's a place that is a place of break from the museum where many other events can also take place. So this is how the museum was conceived. You know, what is interesting is that when you do a public building, one of the things that drives the public building is that how much space you make besides the program. Very often what happens is that you get tired after going through a gallery and there's museum fatigue. And I think you need breaks from that to come back to real life again and see people and see things as a casual observer rather than focus on the contents of the museum. So this spine, which could have been, of course, much less, but now it's become a grand spine, and there's this huge space that climbs up 17 floors, almost 14 floors, sorry, all the way up, becomes more of a place which can be used for multiple things rather than just as a passage in between. So by exaggerating that passage, and of course the section became the connector for taking care of multiple issues. The materials, of course, the choice was that what is the local material that's available, and there was this wonderful yellowish stone called Khavda stone, which is quarried from close by, not very far from here, and that goes with the color of the earth, and that is used for cladding for all these buildings. And then whatever was the waste that was cut off and left was used for the flooring. As you can see, the floorings of two types. The stairs have straight cut stones, but then the waste is also used. So the question was also always of how do you recycle, reuse things to its maximum. The Bhuj Dongar essentially has 4 sides, and this one side, which is on the southern side, is anchored by the sun point, and on the other side the museum, and the reservoirs and the forest happens in between. So that's the journey that you take. Now to reach these reservoirs and to traverse through the forest, you have paths. And as you know, every religion have pilgrimage as a basis for finding yourself. And the pilgrimage, if you understand, is a journey to find yourself, your inner self. Now the question was, there are very practical things also. When you traverse this, can people on a wheelchair, people who are not very young, people who are infirm for some reason or the other, can they also travel? I think it became important that these things are also taken care of. This is one of the 3 entry points to the memorial. So, you know, the whole memorial is based on the premise that every victim should be represented by a tree. Now, when you talk about a forest, planting trees is very simple. But to plant a tree in Bhuj, where there is only 300 mm of rainfall, and every 2 years there's a drought or there's a cyclone, it's a difficult proposition. So it led us to start thinking about what are the local species. We identified 56 local species after having various studies done, 30 from the other parts of Gujarat. So there are about 86 different species of trees and plants that are out here. Everything in our culture is connected to this vast diversity. Whether you go north to south or east to west or wherever you go, you will find this diversity. So you have this sort of heterogeneity. And this heterogeneity is to reflect that. We said you can't have one reservoir, one large reservoir, you have to have many. And when you have many, it becomes cheaper, easier to build, and you can phase them out. And each one is complete in itself. So the whole idea behind these structures is to produce a set of reservoirs that leak water into the earth. the cycle was that how do you arrest rainfall and recharge it into the earth? And recharge it into the earth is by these reservoirs that we made out of gabions. Gabions are these structures that you see here. These are baskets of steel wire and zinc-coated steel wire. And they just put in the local stone into it. And that stone then makes these heavy walls around which you step them down like a traditional step tank so that everybody can have access to it. It is safe. And the lowest part of it is lined so that this water stays longer or almost permanently. And on the top of it are the names of all the victims who perished during the earthquake. They are emblazoned out here so people can come, and they are also cut out of the sheet so their absence is felt. On the other side is the Sun Point, is the other anchor where they wanted a place to watch the sunset, and we said, why not watch sunrise? I mean, in all human beings, there's a desire to connect to the infinite. You know, deep inside us, we are always looking at how do we become larger than what we are. And so, how do you connect? You have the journey, you have the pilgrimage, and you're trying to connect to your infinite self, and as well as go deeper within and connect to the celestial being. This place was conceived that as you climb up, like in many pilgrimages, you come to a temple. But this is not a temple in that sense. It is a place which frames the countryside around, the city around on one side. And on top of it, it frames and gives you the sense of the cosmos, as if it is you're in a hemisphere. And so the ring sort of divides these two worlds and allows you to go into that infinite connection. And if you see the ring has several notches in it. It has actually every 12.9 degrees, it has a notch. So it's 28 notches on the top of the ring. Those 28 notches are connected from the first day of the new moon, when it is Amavasya. And as you move along, every day the moon shifts by 12.9 degrees and rises through the next notch. And ultimately, Poonam ends up on the last notch, if you'll notice out here. The lower part of it also has certain notches in it, and it has these pillars that are going through it. Now, if you come here on the day of the equinox, or you come here on the day of the summer or winter solstice, you will see the sun rise or sunset through these lower notches. So this is what they call a luni-solar calendar. Both the things are combined together. Now, while making this space, we thought that, is it only the sunset or do you see sunrise also? And if it is elevated above and it frames the heavens also, then you will connect not only horizontally but vertically also. The material is all cast and poured in situ concrete. And we made these molds to have these various images on it. It's been a journey for me of about 18 years. When we were commissioned, we were asked by the Gujarat State Disaster Management Authority to conceive with this very brief that what kind of a memorial would you do? And that's how this idea emerged. So it has been a long 18 years, but a very fruitful journey. And I think the inspiration has been our Honorable Prime Minister, who started this journey. A vision which carried on despite changes and all kinds of obstacles that came in its way. And today people are enjoying it. As the architect of the project, I don't think we are not the people who do it alone, okay? There's a whole team of people. There are many, many people who have participated. And it's a very long list to mention, but I would say that each one's contribution at every level, whether it is at the site, the contractor, it's to do with the people who supervised it, the R&B, GSDMA, of course, and the vision of the person who initiated it. I think all of it has reached a certain level only because it all came together. when you start dealing with natural systems, you start loosening up firstly. You are not so possessive about that it is designed by you, first of all. And I think a lot of us suffer from this thing of saying that, oh, it is mine. I don't think it is mine, it is everybody's. If it is everybody's, how do people participate in it? And how do you make that space which allows this to people to? When I say space, I'm talking about two things: space in the mind, to be able to accommodate many, many divergent views to come in. And that has been a great learning experience. The other one is to say that, of course, the physical space for it. So the scales of it, the ways that what is big and large, what is small and tight, how do you sort of balance these different scales together? All that has been a great learning experience. And secondly, I think this distinction that we make between building as something defined and confined and the outside as something else, I think that has been completely obliterated. I think how do you feel comfortable in any place is what the forest teaches you.